Hi guys, my name is Andy. Welcome to my very first video on my new channel, Harmony in the Home. Thank you so much for trusting me enough to press that play button. I wanted to share with you today my why. And I did script this video. I'm nervous, and also I wanted to make sure I didn't leave anything out. So not all of my videos will be scripted. But today I just ask that you please show me some grace as I share with you my why. So again, my name is Andy. I'm so excited to welcome you into this mission that was birthed in me almost 10 years ago. Today I want to share with you my why in hopes that something I share will connect to you and ultimately bless you as a parent. So I attended college straight from high school in the fall of 1996. I declared psychology as a major, sociology as a minor, knowing that I had a heart for helping people. I knew I wanted to work with children, and I initially assumed that I would do typical family therapy or individual therapy for children who were perhaps being bullied, having social issues, struggling with depression, anxiety, etc. My career paths took me into school campuses, in homes, in private practice, and with children of all ages as well as adults. As a young counselor, I faced my own private battles and toxic relationships. I went through my first heartbreak and divorce while serving adults with mental health concerns related to their chronic pain problems. In 2007, I met my current husband, Stephen, and his 2 children, and I took a leap of faith, packed my bags, and left Texas to begin my new life with my immediate family in California. 2 of my biggest challenges lay ahead as I was forced to learn how to be a stepmom to a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. I also didn't realize that when I left Texas, I would be forced to start over as I lost my license, moving out of state, and began an entry-level position for a company called Casa Pacifica in Santa Barbara County. Regarding my career challenges, I thought I knew it all, and I was a little disappointed when I initially believed to be taking a step backwards into this new entry-level position. Little did I know it was God's plan and an actual forward in my new job as I became a therapeutic behavior specialist. In the 2 short years that I was employed there, I learned how to observe parent and child dynamics in their homes, help the parent come up with a plan to help in that dynamic, and then coach and model in this setting. As I told you, I too was learning how to be a parent, and I was able to practice the skills I was learning at work at home. My 3-year-old stepson had been recently diagnosed with autism, and he was a perfect candidate for learning many of the skills I was trying to teach and coach the parents that I worked with. To my surprise, the practicing worked. Maybe I'll share a little more of that journey in another video. However, back to my job, I had a small, manageable caseload at the time that allowed me to provide intensive assistance and eventually fade out as the skills were passed on to the parent and child, and both were able to accomplish goals together. The relationship with each family was completed with a celebration of successes they achieved together and a sort of passing of the baton to the parent, reminding them that they were fully capable and a true expert of their children in their homes. I'll never forget the smiles and confidence experienced on those final days of services. In the summer of 2009, we packed our bags again and moved back to Texas, where I began my journey working with children and families involved in the CPS system. It was shortly after this that my vision began to crystallize. I realized that many of the families that I worked with were well-meaning parents, with the intention to do right by their children. However, they were not equipped with the knowledge, support, or skills needed to be proper parents. Most of them were not treated well due to their situation and involvement with CPS. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some who did not appear to have any intention to do well, and had no interest in my services and did everything to avoid me. The ones who took interest, however, did so once they saw that I also had the intention to help them and not make them feel like the enemy. Once I was able to establish trust with them, they allowed me to guide them. Many of them shared their own journeys with me, and I discovered most of them came from a cycle of CPS, all types of abuse, neglect, and many times substance addiction. It was a huge challenge for me, as I commonly felt that I did not have the time or resources needed to provide for them the kind of help that they truly needed. In my new role as therapist in Texas, I was reminded about my experience in California as a TBS, or therapeutic behavior specialist, and the fact that it was not a standalone service, meaning it was not designed to be the only assistance provided to that family. Most of them needed, in addition to my services, therapy, at times a parent partner, a crisis assistance program available as needed, and at times a social worker. Now, here I am offering once a week, if I'm lucky, services, 1 hour at a time, to these families who needed much more than this. God placed it in my heart that more needed to be done. What is occurring in San Antonio right now is not working. Maybe the system in your town is not working. There are more children involved in the foster care system and losing placements than ever before. What we are doing is not working. Now, please understand that I know the value of therapy. I feel, as a therapist, while I'm establishing positive relationships with each of my children, with a caring adult, which they absolutely need, it is simply not enough. Children want to be with their families. CPS wants them to be home. Why are services only offered after a child loses placement and the odds are stacked against the parents and child for success? I knew I needed to work from a more preventative position. So some of you may be thinking, well, I'm not at risk for losing my children to the CPS system. Beyond children and families in the CPS system, my heart has also been drawn to the fact that every single mom and dad struggles. I am an educated, pretty well trained, both in class, books, and experience mom, and I need help. Why is it that everything in life that has importance has a manual, but parenting, even with resources, parenting is very hard? Every child is different, but important jobs should be taught, studied, coached, and modeled. Isn't parenting considered the most important job in the world? Sure, there are books. My personal favorite reference book is the Bible, but you really have to search to find resources. And many times there just is this expectation when you're a woman to become a mom one day and to be a good one at that. I'd like to tell you a short story of the day that I came home from the hospital with my first biological son. He was 3 days old, and we were finally taking him home from the hospital after a couple of complications that led to an emergency C-section. I will tell you that while I was in the hospital recouping, I was not one of those moms that couldn't wait to go home. I loved being taken care of by the nurses. I loved having people around me providing feedback and telling me how to care for my new baby. This mommy thing did not necessarily come natural for me like people promised it would. So the day we came home, I sat down with my blended family for our first meal at home after the hospital, and I excused myself from them because I could feel my eyes welling up in tears. But that was nothing compared to the overwhelming emotions that hit me. I felt scared, anxious, and a sense of disappointment in myself that these mommy instincts weren't simply kicking in. I knew that this perfect little baby would be disappointed in me and that I would let him down in some way. I felt so much pressure to do everything right and terrified that once my family saw that Andy, the therapist and behavior specialist, didn't know what she was doing, was a fraud. These emotions stayed with me for a couple of months, and now I know that what I was experiencing was postpartum depression. But nobody prepared me for that part. And I have a wonderful family, but even they didn't fully know how to support me during this difficult time and learning how to be a mom again. This experience, I believe, was something I was supposed to go through so that I could be more sensitive to other mommies who struggle with the pressures of mommyhood and the fears of simply not being good enough for your child. My final why I would like to share with you today is a tough subject to talk about in these difficult days. But you and I both know there is just way too much horror, ugly, I don't know what else to call it, going on in the world today. Bullying, school shootings, drug addiction, social media obsession, suicide. I could go on. If you do not think that any of these topics affect you as a parent, you are wrong. We either need to be an active part of the solution or we will be a part of the problem. I'm not asking anyone to start a movement, but by being here today, you're making an active decision to be a part of the solution. We can't blame teachers. Our children's foundations start at home. Their responses to stressors are molded by what is instilled in them in the home. We can't have this mentality that I'm just going to do my best with this child and just hope that when they turn 18, they're going to go off into the world and be fine. We're sending them into the wilderness now. Bad things happen way before 18. So we must be intentional about our relationships way before 18. Some of you may be homeschooling your child and you're able to help keep them from this a little longer. But there are still things that children are exposed to, and it is happening way earlier now. They can't watch commercials on regular TV without exposure to trash. They can't play freely on their electronic devices without some exposure to influences that we would not choose for them. And when they go off to school, forget it. They need to be equipped now. They need armor and tools now. I plan to help provide you with some of those tools. It begins with you. It begins with intentional and healthy relationships. Some of the topics I plan to share are ways to build healthier relationships in your home, ways to help your child communicate their needs in a healthy way, and strategies for de-escalation. My long-term vision will include creating a forum online where parents can ask questions and bounce ideas off of one another in a safe and judgment-free space. I love helping parents establish routines, and I love utilizing visual aids in the home to help take the nagging out of the dynamic. I also want to hear from you. What are you struggling with? Feel free to send me an email or write a question in the comments, and I will do everything I can to help you. I would love to add you to my email list. My email address is linked to this channel. Now, I don't proclaim to know everything about parenting, but I now have an 18-year-old stepdaughter whom I've had since she was 5, a 16-year-old stepson whom I've had since he was 3. They both live with us full time, as well as an 8 and a 6-year-old. I have successfully established great routines and relationships in our home with lots of trial and error support, and I hope that I can help you do the same. Stay tuned for more free resources soon. Hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out, and thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.